They thought I was too old to notice, too weak to fight back, too blind to see the knives they were sharpening behind their polite smiles. But when I heard my own grandchildren whispering about selling my house before I was even dead, something in me turned to stone. That night, I made a promise. If they wanted war, I'd give them one. I live alone in Dallas. 80 years old, retired, a house full of memories and silence. My wife's been gone for over a decade, and the only thing keeping me moving are the routines I built out of habit: morning coffee, evening walks, checking the locks 3 times before bed. My son and daughter drifted away long ago, chasing their own lives, too busy to bother with an old man. That left me with the grandchildren, 4 of them. For years, I convinced myself they cared, that their visits meant something. But deep down, I knew better. It started one Saturday afternoon. I'd stepped onto the porch to water the potted geraniums Ellen used to love. The Texas sun was brutal, heat pressing down like a hand on my back. I heard voices through the open window of my own living room. They thought I was still outside. Once he slips up, we'll have proof he can't manage on his own. That was Ryan, the oldest, 30, sharp suit, sharper tongue. Always thought the world owed him more than his paycheck. And then what? Emily, my granddaughter, 28, newly married into some law firm family. She spoke in that casual, cruel tone that cut deeper than shouting. We put him in assisted living. Sell the house. Split the money. The words sank into me like cold steel. My house. The walls I built with my own hands. The floors I polished while Ellen laughed at me for fussing over details. A home I'd bled for. They wanted to carve it up like carrion. I didn't make a sound. I just stood there, the hose spilling water onto the porch boards, soaking into my boots. My heart pounded so hard I thought they'd hear it through the wall. Think about it, Ryan said. The place is worth at least $800,000, and he's sitting on savings. He won't fight. He's too tired. He'll just sign whatever we put in front of him. Emily laughed softly. Grandpa's a soldier, remember? He used to brag about the army days. But now, he can barely climb the stairs. He won't see it coming. Soldier. They said it like a joke. But I wasn't laughing. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments where you're watching from. That night, I sat in the dark of my living room, the clock ticking like a metronome. Photographs stared back at me from the mantel: Christmas mornings, graduations, birthdays where I'd handed them envelopes of cash, gifts, opportunities. And now those same faces plotted to erase me. The anger wasn't hot. It was cold, precise, like the feeling before a mission back in '62 when I trained young recruits to dismantle rifles blindfolded. Calm, focused, dangerous. I didn't confront them that day. No, that would have given them power. Instead, I began to listen more carefully. Their whispers on the phone, their careless slips during dinners. I started noticing how often Ryan helped me with mail, sliding envelopes into his jacket pocket. How Emily offered to organize my medication, her eyes lingering on the pill bottles a little too long. They underestimated me, thought I was slipping, but every detail burned into my memory. Every glance, every word, every smirk when they thought I wasn't looking. 2 nights later, I caught Ryan in my study. Midnight. I stayed silent in the hallway, watching his silhouette outlined by the desk lamp. My desk drawer was open, papers spread across the mahogany surface. Deeds, bank statements, my will. He didn't know I was recording from the shadows. Didn't hear the faint click of the old cassette recorder Ellen had kept in the sewing box. His voice carried, low and hurried. Once we switch these pages, Grandpa won't even notice. By the time he does, it'll be too late. I stepped back before he turned, my hands steady, my breathing calm. Not yet. Not tonight. Because revenge isn't about rage. It's about timing. The next morning, I made pancakes the way I used to when they were kids. Flipped them on the griddle, butter sizzling, the kitchen smelling of vanilla and burnt sugar. Emily smiled, syrup dripping from her fork. Ryan asked for seconds. None of them knew I'd watched him rifling through my life. None of them suspected the old man was already setting his trap. And as I poured the coffee, I smiled back, steady as stone. They thought I was helpless. But I was already planning how to destroy them with their own greed. What they didn't know, what they would never suspect, was that I had one card left to play, one secret none of them could imagine. And when I used it, they'd lose everything. Morning light spilled across my kitchen table, making the coffee steam glow like smoke from a battlefield. I stirred it slowly, watching the liquid swirl, thinking about Ryan's hands rifling through my papers 2 nights before. They thought I hadn't noticed. They thought I'd grown too frail, too distracted by aches and loneliness to see the vultures circling. That was their mistake. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to beg. I'd fought wars, buried men younger than them, and carried scars they'd never understand. I knew patience. I knew how to wait. And I knew how to turn their schemes into weapons. The first step was simple: information. In the army, before you strike, you scout. Know the terrain, know the enemy. My grandchildren were no different. That afternoon, I drove to the small strip mall 2 miles away. The old Ford rattled down Greenville Avenue, its engine coughing like a smoker, but I'd kept it alive longer than any mechanic expected. Parking outside the diner, I adjusted my cap and stepped inside. The place smelled of bacon grease and strong coffee, same as it had for 30 years. And there in the back booth sat Tommy Hughes, private investigator, once a rookie cop I'd trained in firearms back in the 70s. Now his hair was gray, his gut heavier, but his eyes were sharp as ever. "Bob," he said, standing to shake my hand. "Heard you retired years ago. Thought you'd disappeared." "Not yet," I said. "I need a favor. And I'll pay." He tilted his head, studying me. "What kind of favor?" I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "I need everything on 4 people. My grandchildren. Ryan, Emily, Caleb, and Sarah. Where they go, what they owe, what they're hiding. I want the truth, not their smiles." For a second, Tommy didn't speak. Then he nodded slowly. "Family problems, huh?" "Family war," I corrected. He slid a notebook across the table. "Write down full names, ages, anything you got. Give me a week. You'll have a file thick enough to choke a horse." Back home, I waited. I played the role of forgetful grandpa perfectly. Let Ryan help with my checkbook. Let Emily bring her husband around with fake politeness. Even laughed when Caleb, the youngest, joked about how grandpa should just relax and sign stuff while he still remembers his name. My jaw tightened, but I kept smiling. At night, though, I planned. The cassette recorder with Ryan's voice went into a locked tin box. I made duplicates, USB drives, one hidden under a floorboard, another mailed to myself in a sealed envelope, postmarked proof. Evidence. Insurance. Every morning, I walked past the photos on the mantel, birthday cakes, vacations, Ellen holding those kids like treasures. I whispered to her picture, "They don't deserve your memory." "But I'll handle it, Ellen. I'll handle them." 5 days later, Tommy called. "Meet me at the diner. Bring cash." The file he slid across the table was heavy, manila edges bursting with paper. "You weren't wrong," he said. "They're in deep." I opened it right there. Ryan, 30 grand in gambling debts, 2 credit cards maxed out, collection agencies circling. Emily lined her husband about student loans she never paid off, secretly pawning jewelry he'd bought her. Caleb, 3 DUI arrests sealed with community service, one more mistake away from jail. And Sarah, sweet Sarah, always pretending innocence, caught forging my signature on a credit union inquiry last month. My blood ran cold, but my voice stayed steady. "Good work." Tommy sipped his coffee. "What are you going to do with this, Bob?" I closed the file slowly. "I'm going to let them hang themselves with their own rope." That night, Ryan came over unannounced. He swaggered into my living room, acting like he owned the place, his cologne stinking of cheap whiskey and desperation. "Grandpa, you need help with those bills? I could set up online banking for you. Real easy." His grin was slick, but his eyes darted to the study door where the safe sat. I kept my face blank. "Maybe tomorrow, Ryan. Tonight I'm tired." He shrugged, pretending not to be disappointed, and grabbed a beer from my fridge without asking. "Sure thing. Tomorrow then." As he turned, I caught his reflection in the darkened window calculating greedy. He didn't see me watching. And he sure as hell didn't know that by tomorrow, I'd already set my first trap. The next morning, I drove to my lawyer's office. Quiet man named Foster, sharp dresser, no nonsense. I slid Tommy's file across his polished desk. I need a new will, I said. And I need it airtight. They can't touch what I leave behind unless I allow it. Foster flipped through the pages, eyebrows rising. Your grandchildren are quite reckless. They're worse, I said. They think I'm blind. I want every loophole closed, every penny protected. And I want one copy they'll see and another they won't. His lips curved into the faintest smile. I understand. When I walked out into the Texas heat, the sun hit my face like fire. For the first time in months, I felt alive. I had evidence, I had a plan, and I had patience. They thought I was too old to fight. But I wasn't planning to fight. I was planning to win. And soon, they'd discover just how dangerous an old man with nothing left to lose could be. The first strike had to be clean. Not loud, not obvious. A wound they wouldn't even realize came from me, at least not right away. That's how you break people like Ryan and Emily. You don't swing wild. You cut where it hurts most. Reputation, money, pride. It was Thursday evening when the chance landed in my lap. Ryan came swaggering through my front door with that fake grin plastered on his face. He always showed up around dinner, like I was some diner on his personal route. But this time, he wasn't alone. He dragged in a slick-haired man with gold cufflinks and the confidence of a man used to taking advantage of others. Grandpa, this is Vince, Ryan said, clapping the man on the back. He's got some investment opportunities. Thought you'd want to hear about them. Great chance for you too. You know, grow your savings. Grow my savings. I nearly laughed in his face. He didn't even try to hide it anymore. He thought I'd sign whatever paper he slid across the table. I shook Vince's hand, firm and steady, then gestured for them to sit. They launched into a rehearsed pitch about a real estate deal, guaranteed returns, limited time. Ryan leaned forward, eyes sparkling like a child waiting for candy. All the while, I kept my face blank, nodding slowly as if I were confused. Inside, I was memorizing every word, every false number, every promise that smelled of fraud. Finally, Ryan slid the paper toward me. You just need to sign here, Grandpa. Easy as pie. I lifted my reading glasses onto my nose, studied the page, and made a show of squinting. Well now, that does sound interesting, I said softly. But my lawyer insists I send him anything before I sign. He handles all my finances now. The grin slid off Ryan's face. Your lawyer. That's right, I said, folding the contract and tucking it into a folder on the counter. Can't be too careful at my age. You boys understand. Vince tried to cover the tension with a quick laugh. Of course, Mr. Selvers, of course. Just don't wait too long. Opportunities like this disappear. I smiled faintly. Some things deserve to disappear. They left soon after, Ryan's jaw tight, Vince muttering under his breath. What they didn't know was that the next morning, that document was in the hands of my lawyer and a copy in Tommy's. Within hours, Tommy had confirmation Vince was a con man, under investigation for 2 prior fraud schemes. I had them. That weekend, Emily came by. Always dressed sharp, perfume thick, her phone glued to her hand like it was part of her body. She gave me her usual kiss on the cheek, that fake sweetness hiding the steel beneath. Grandpa, she said, voice honeyed, I've been thinking. You shouldn't stress about bills and paperwork. Why don't I help you manage your accounts? Just temporary, until you're comfortable. I sipped my coffee, letting her words hang. Manage my accounts? That's thoughtful, Emily. But I don't want to trouble you. Oh, it's no trouble, she said quickly. Really, all you'd have to do is give me access to your online banking. I can handle transfers, pay your utilities, make sure everything's organized. Less stress for you. Her eyes glistened with eagerness. I knew that look, it was hunger disguised as care. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Emily, tell me something. When was the last time you did something for me that wasn't about money? The smile faltered for a heartbeat, but she recovered fast. Grandpa, I care about you. No, I said, my tone sharp enough to make her flinch. You care about what you can take. And that's all right, because soon you're going to learn just how costly greed can be. Her phone buzzed then, saving her from answering. She excused herself, retreating to the porch to whisper into it. But I'd seen enough. The net was closing. Monday morning, I called Tommy. Time to move. That evening, an anonymous envelope landed on Ryan's employer's desk. Inside, copies of the fraudulent contract Vince had offered me, recordings of Ryan pushing me to sign, and proof of his gambling debts. By Tuesday, Ryan was escorted out of the office in front of his coworkers, his face pale, his bravado shattered. At the same time, Emily's husband received a neat little package at his law firm. Inside, photocopies of her pawn shop receipts, her hidden credit cards, her unpaid student loans. By Wednesday, word had spread through his office. A lawyer's wife caught drowning in lies, it hit his reputation like a hammer. I didn't have to shout. I didn't have to raise a hand. All I had to do was turn their secrets loose. That night, I sat in my dark living room, Ellen's photograph staring at me from the mantel. Too down, I whispered. The phone rang. Ryan's voice exploded through the receiver. Grandpa, what the hell did you do? They fired me. Someone sent them documents. You think this is funny? I let the silence stretch until his breathing calmed. Then I spoke, calm and cold. This is just the beginning, Ryan. You tried to bury me. Now you'll find out what it feels like. His voice cracked with rage. You can't. But I hung up before he finished. The trap was working, and the next move would break them even further. The thing about revenge is this, it doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just waits in the shadows, breathing slow, until your enemy feels safe again. Then it strikes, quiet and precise. Ryan hadn't called me again after that furious outburst. He knew. He suspected. But he didn't have proof, and that was the sweetest part. His own sins were enough to bury him. By Friday, he was out of a job, his apartment lease in jeopardy, the shark circling for the debts he'd been juggling for years. And Emily? The whispers around her husband's law firm spread like wildfire. Clients don't trust a lawyer who can't even control his own household. By the end of the week, she was begging her husband to believe her lies. But men like him don't forgive that kind of embarrassment. Not when reputation is currency. I didn't need to spy. They came to me. It was a Saturday night when Emily showed up. No makeup this time, hair tied back, eyes red from crying. She stood in my doorway like she hadn't spent the last 6 months scheming to put me in a nursing home. Grandpa, she whispered. Can I come in? I stepped aside slowly. The porch light flickered against her pale face as she shuffled inside. She sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd taught her to play checkers when she was 8. Back then, she laughed when she won. Tonight, she didn't laugh. Things are complicated, she said finally, voice cracking. Jason thinks I lied to him. He found out about some debts. About. Her eyes started up to mine, searching for sympathy. I said nothing, just sipped my coffee. Let the silence chew at her. You don't understand, she tried again. No, I cut her off, my voice sharp enough to make her flinch. I understand perfectly. You wanted my money. You wanted my house. And when I didn't roll over, you went looking for ways to push me out. Assisted living, wasn't it? Sell the house, split the profits. Her lips parted in shock. I could see her brain scrambling. How did he know? You thought I didn't hear you whispering with Ryan in this very house, I continued, leaning forward, my eyes locked on hers. You thought the old man was deaf. But I hear everything. The color drained from her face. Her hands trembled around the coffee mug. What do you want from me? She whispered. I leaned back, cold and calm. Nothing. I already have what I need. Her tears came then, hot and messy, splashing onto the wood grain of the table. Please, don't ruin me. I stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the yard Ellen once tended with her hands in the dirt. You ruined yourself, Emily. I'm just the mirror. 2 days later, it was Ryan's turn. He showed up around noon, pounding on the door like the
wolf come to huff and puff. I let him in. His eyes were bloodshot, his shirt wrinkled, the slick confidence stripped away. They're threatening me, he spat. You don't get it, Grandpa. These guys, if I don't pay back the money, I'm dead. You have to help me. Help you?
I said, tilting my head. After you tried to forge my signature. After you dug through my drawers like a rat in the dark. His jaw tightened. That's not don't lie, I snapped. My voice echoed against the walls, startling even myself. I saw you. I heard you. You thought I was asleep, thought I was blind. I recorded every word. He froze. For the first time in his smug, arrogant life, Ryan looked afraid. Truly afraid. You wouldn't. I stepped closer, so close I could smell the sour sweat on him. Wouldn't what? Use your own greed against you? You've already lost your job. Your name's dirt. All I have to do is make one more call, and those Menua will see exactly how worthless you are. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The fight drained out of him. You see, Ryan, I whispered, my face inches from his, you thought you were hunting me. But I was hunting you. He staggered back, muttering curses, then bolted out the door. Tires screeched down the street as he fled. That night, I sat in the living room, the grandfather clock ticking steady, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. For the first time in years, I felt control settling back into my bones. But I wasn't finished. There were still two more. Caleb, the drunk with 3 DUIs, and Sarah, sweet little Sarah, who thought forging my signature would stay buried. They were next. And this time, I wasn't just going to shake their pride. I was going to break it. Caleb was always the reckless one. The kid who thought the world was a game of chance, that consequences were something other people dealt with. 3 DUIs before 25 community service hours swept under the rug because Grandpa will understand. Every time he screwed up, he flashed that crooked grin, and I caved. Not this time. This time, the boy was going to learn. It was a Friday night when I spotted his silver Dodge idling outside the bar on Lemon Avenue. Same bar he always crawled to when the week turned sour. I'd parked across the street in the shadows, my old Ford blending in like another forgotten relic. From the driver's seat, I watched him stumble out of the neon glow with 2 friends hanging off his shoulders. Laughter spilled across the parking lot, loud and hollow, like bottles clinking before they shatter. He tossed his buddies into a rideshare, waved them off, then swaggered to his car. Keys jingled. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. The anger bubbled, but I forced it back down into ice. I could storm out, drag him onto the pavement, scream that he was killing himself and would kill others. But screaming never works on boys like Caleb. They need to feel the trap close on their necks. So I followed. The Dodge swerved down Lemon like a snake, tires kissing the yellow line more often than not. I hung 2 blocks back, headlights dimmed, my engine low. Every time he veered, I marked it in my head. Evidence. 10 minutes later, fate handed me the perfect stage. A patrol car sat tucked behind the gas station on Forest Lane, its officer sipping coffee, eyes half closed. Caleb's Dodge drifted wide on the turn, tires screeching. The cruiser pulled out immediately, lights flashing. Caleb panicked. He hit the gas, stupid as always. The chase was short. 1 block, 2 turns, then the Dodge fishtailed into a curb, smoke pouring from the hood. I parked a street away and walked slowly toward the scene, blending with the gathering crowd. Caleb was pinned against the patrol car, hands cuffed, face pale under the red and blue strobes. "Son of a my grandpa will fix this," he shouted, voice cracking. The officer just shoved him into the back seat. "Call whoever you want. You're done tonight." He looked up then and saw me. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just stood under the streetlight, hands folded behind my back, watching like a judge watching the condemned. Our eyes locked. His mouth dropped open. In that moment, he knew. He knew. I hadn't set the trap with my hands, but I'd guided him into it. 2 days later, the phone rang. County jail number. I let it buzz 3 times before answering. "Grandpa," Caleb's voice was hoarse, desperate. "You gotta post bail. Please. They'll suspend my license for good. I'll lose everything." I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking. "Everything? You mean the car I paid for, the insurance I covered, the lawyer I hired last time?" Silence. Then a shaky whisper. I messed up. I closed my eyes, letting the words wash over me. Finally, the boy admitted it. But I wasn't here to comfort him. "No, Caleb," I said coldly. "You didn't mess up. You chose. over and over. And now you live with it. He started to beg, voice cracking, but I hung up. That evening, I drove past the jail just as visiting hours ended. Families streamed out, mothers wiping tears, wives clutching toddlers. I stayed in the truck, engine idling, watching as Caleb pressed his face to the barred window, scanning the lot. He was looking for me, but I didn't move. He needed to see what it felt like to be abandoned. To know the old man he counted on wasn't coming this time. As I pulled away, I caught his silhouette shrinking in the mirror, hands pressed against the glass, mouth moving in silent desperation. I whispered to the empty cab, 3 down. The next day, Sarah came knocking. Sweet, innocent Sarah. Or so she wanted me to believe. But I had the proof, the forged signature, the stolen forms. Her time was coming, and unlike Ryan and Caleb, her punishment wouldn't come from strangers or flashing lights. It would come from me. Sarah was always the one everyone swore was different. The sweet one, the careful one, the good granddaughter who brought pies on Thanksgiving and smiled just right for the family photos. But I'd seen her handwriting. My handwriting, copied clumsily, dragged across a bank form. The forged signature that would have handed her access to my credit union account. That was no mistake. That was intent. And intent was all I needed. She came by on a Wednesday afternoon, the sun beating down so hard the porch railing burned under my palm. She carried a box of cookies like some high schooler on a fundraiser. Her smile was warm, almost convincing. Almost. Grandpa, she said, setting the box on my counter, I thought I'd bring you a little treat. Chocolate chip. Your favorite. I looked at the cookies, then at her. Her green eyes darted once, then held steady. She thought she was still wearing the mask. You've been busy, haven't you? I asked. Her head tilted. Busy? I reached into the drawer of my desk and pulled out the photocopy Tommy had slipped me, her forged form, my name scrawled in cheap black ink. I slid it across the table. The color drained from her cheeks. Funny thing about signatures, I said quietly. You can fake the letters, but you can't fake the hand, the pressure, the angle. A soldier notices these things. Her lips trembled. Grandpa, I can explain. No, I cut in, my voice flat as a rifle shot. You can't explain theft. You can't explain betrayal. She sat down hard, the chair legs screeching across the floor. For the first time, she looked her age, 23 going on 5, caught with her hand in the cookie jar. I was desperate, she whispered. Ryan said, he said you wouldn't notice. That you had so much money you'd never, Ryan. I snapped. So it was his idea? Her silence was enough. I leaned closer. You thought you'd test the waters. Steal a little before stealing it all. That's the kind of woman you've become. Her hands shook. Please, Grandpa. I'll make it right. I'll pay it back. I barked a laugh, bitter and sharp. With what? The part-time job you quit last month? Or the money you borrowed from your friend and never returned? You don't fix this with promises, Sarah. You fix this by facing who you are. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments where you're watching from. That night, I set the second trap. I made copies of the forged document and mailed them anonymous, of course, to her university's scholarship office, to the bank she'd applied at last summer, even to the church she still pretended to attend. Not to ruin her immediately. No, this was slower, colder. A seed planted, roots creeping under the floorboards. When those institutions looked at her again, they'd see a fraud risk, a liability, a smiling face hiding rotten teeth. And she wouldn't know where it started. 2 days later, she came storming back, eyes red, mascara streaked. She slammed her phone on my kitchen table. They suspended me, she hissed. My internship is on hold. Someone sent them this. She shoved the paper toward me, the photocopy of her forgery. I picked it up slowly, pretending to study it like it was the first time. Well, I said, voice low, seems you've been found out. Her face twisted. It was you, wasn't it? I let the silence hang, let the clock tick, let her fear rise like smoke. Then I leaned forward, my voice a whisper she had to lean in to hear. I don't need to ruin you, Sarah. You already did that yourself. I just lit the lantern so everyone else could see. Tears spilled down her face. She covered her mouth, staring at me like I was someone she'd never known. Maybe for the first time, she realized who I really was. Not the soft old man in the recliner, not the wallet with gray hair. A soldier. A man who'd lived through worse betrayals than hers. A man who knew how to fight wars without firing a shot. That evening, I walked the quiet streets of Dallas, the cicadas buzzing loud in the August heat. My hands were steady, my steps slow. Ryan ruined. Caleb caged. Emily exposed. Sarah unmasked. 4 grandchildren. 4 knives in my back. And now 4 cracks in their perfect little world. But I wasn't done. Not by half. Because they hadn't just tried to steal my money. They'd tried to erase me. And before I was finished, the whole city would know exactly who they were: selfish, rotten, ungrateful. And they'd know who I was. The grandfather who fought back. The air in the house felt different that week, heavy, electric, like the silence before a storm. They knew. Each of them, in their own way, had already felt my hand. Ryan had lost his job. His phone calls to me now came short, frantic, his voice always one step away from breaking. Emily's marriage was cracking. Her husband had stopped showing up with her on visits, the cold tone in his emails leaking through the family grapevine. Caleb was out on bail, but barely holding on, his license gone, his Dodge impounded, his so-called friends scattering like roaches. And Sarah, poor Sarah. The internship she bragged about at every family dinner was gone, her future cut down before it even began. They thought it was bad luck, or karma, or maybe each other. They hadn't yet dared to say the truth aloud. Grandpa did this. Sunday evening, they finally came together. I knew because I made sure of it. The letter had gone out Wednesday, 1 neat copy each, delivered in plain envelopes with no return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper, for words written in black ink. I hear everything. I pictured their faces when they read it. Ryan's blood draining to his shoes. Emily biting her lip till it bled. Caleb cursing out loud in his filthy apartment. Sarah clutching the page like it might burn her hands. And tonight, I saw their cars line up outside my house. First Emily's Lexus, then Ryan's beat-up Camry, Caleb's borrowed truck, Sarah's old Honda. They thought they were staging an ambush. I was already waiting. The knock shook the front door harder than it needed to. I didn't rush. I let them stew on the porch, shifting in the Texas heat, until finally I opened it. They filed in, 4 faces twisted by fear, anger, and something else stout. Ryan spoke first, his voice sharp but shaky. Enough games, Grandpa. What the hell are you doing to us? I raised an eyebrow. Games? Emily stepped forward, waving the letter. This. The firings, the suspensions, the arrests. It's all connected. You're behind us. I sat slowly in my chair, folding my hands in my lap. And why would I do that? Caleb barked a laugh, bitter and loud. Because you hate us. You've been plotting, setting us up. I know it. We all know it. I leaned back, letting the clock tick fill the silence. Then I said, calm and low, funny. A guilty man always thinks the trap is meant for him. Their eyes darted at each other. Sarah whispered, Grandpa, please, just tell us. How much do you know? I stood. The floor creaked under my boots. I know everything. Every debt. Every lie. Every forged paper. Every whispered plan to put me away. I could hand it all to the police tomorrow and you'd be finished. Emily's voice cracked. You wouldn't, I cut her off, sharp. Don't you dare pretend you know what I would or wouldn't do. You thought I was weak. You thought you could steal the home I built, the life I carved out of sweat and blood. And now you're afraid because for the first time you see me clearly. Ryan slammed his fist on the table, trying to mask his fear with anger. You can't scare us forever. We'll fight back. I stepped closer, my shadow falling over him. My voice dropped to a whisper that made them all lean in. You already lost. Silence swallowed the room. Emily's breathing was fast and shallow. Caleb's fists clenched and unclenched. Sarah wouldn't lift her eyes from the floor. Then I moved to the mantel and lifted the small black notebook, the one I'd filled for months. I held it like a weapon. Every plan you made, every word you whispered, every mistake you thought I didn't notice. It's all here, copied, recorded, witnessed, and not just in this house. Safe places, trusted people, even a lawyer who owes me favors. Their faces twisted as the truth landed. They weren't just caught. They were surrounded. Ryan finally spoke, his voice breaking. "What do you want from us?" I looked at each of them slowly, letting the pause bite deep. "You'll find out soon," I said. "But know this, what's coming isn't punishment. It's justice." They left not with curses, but with silence. For cars pulling away into the dark, taillights glowing like dying embers. I stood at the window, watching them scatter. My chest felt steady, my mind cold and clear. The war had turned. They weren't predators anymore. They were prey, and the final blow was already set in motion. The sun was just a pale smear behind the Dallas skyline when I poured myself a black coffee and sat by the window. My notebook lay open, every page a weapon. For months I had gathered their sins like dry tinder, and tonight I would strike the match. I had given them time to sweat. Days since our last confrontation, long enough for panic to bloom. Ryan had left me 3 voicemails, voice cracking from rage to begging in the span of 48 hours. Emily sent texts that read like prayers. "Grandpa, let's talk." "Grandpa, please." "Grandpa, I'll fix it." Caleb hadn't called. His bail terms forbade him from drinking, and I knew sobriety was eating him alive. Sarah, the sweet one, tried silence. But silence can't erase evidence. They thought they were waiting for my mercy. What they didn't know was that I'd already scheduled the stage for their downfall. It happened on a Thursday evening at the community hall. A neighborhood meeting, small crowd, nothing dramatic. At least that's what they believed. I made sure all 4 grandchildren received polite invitations, printed and anonymous, hinting at estate matters. Their curiosity, their greed, guaranteed attendance. The hall smelled of floor polish and burnt coffee, fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead. Folding chairs scraped as people shuffled in. My lawyer, Foster, sat near the front with a briefcase. Tommy the investigator leaned against the wall, arms crossed, expression carved from stone. And then they came. Ryan first, wearing the only decent suit he had left, sweat darkening the color. Emily swept in behind him, all pearls and perfume, desperate to look composed. Caleb stumbled in late, eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched like a cornered dog. Sarah entered last, clutching a handbag like it contained her last hope. They froze when they saw me at the podium. "Evening," I said, voice steady, sharp. "Thank you for coming. Tonight's about truth." Murmurs rippled. My grandchildren exchanged quick, nervous looks. I lifted the black notebook and set it on the podium. "This," I said, "is a record of betrayal. For children of my children. For knives aimed at my back." Ryan shot to his feet. "Grandpa, stop this circus." I slammed my palm on the podium, the crack echoing. "Sit down." He sat. They all did. I opened the first file. Ryan Selvers. $30,000 in gambling debts. Attempts to involve me in fraudulent contracts with a known conman. Documents sent to your employer. Terminated. Gasps stirred the hall. Ryan's face turned chalk white. He tried to speak, but the whispers of neighbors drowned him out. Next, Emily. Emily Harper. Unpaid student loans hidden from your husband. Jewelry pawned for cash. Lies stacked so high your marriage collapsed under them. Evidence delivered to the firm where your husband practices. Your reputation? Gone. Emily's hand flew to her mouth. Someone in the back muttered, "Lawyer's wife, a thief?" She crumpled into her chair. Then Caleb. I held up a police report. Caleb Selvers. 3 DUIs. Out on bail after nearly killing a mother and child 2 weeks ago. Court documents filed, license revoked. And yes, every neighbor here knows now. Caleb cursed, half rising, but Tommy stepped forward, and he shrank back like a whipped dog. Finally, Sarah. I drew out the forged signature, crisp under the fluorescent light. Sarah Selvers. Fraud. Forgery. Attempted theft of her own grandfather's accounts. Copies sent to her university, her bank, her church. Internship gone. Future finished. Sarah's tears flowed freely. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing loud enough to echo. The hall buzzed like a hive. Neighbors whispering, shaking their heads. My grandchildren sat shattered, for faces of fear and humiliation. I closed the notebook. You thought I was blind. You thought age made me weak. But I was a soldier before I was your grandfather. And a soldier remembers how to fight wars. I stepped from the podium, my boots heavy on the wooden floor. You wanted my house, my money, my life. You plotted to erase me. I leaned closer, my voice cutting through their sobs. But I erased you. No one moved. Not them. Not the neighbors. Just silence, thick and sharp. I turned, walking toward the door. At the threshold, I paused. You still have your lives. Use them well, because you'll never have mine again. And then I left them sitting in the wreckage of their own greed. Back home, I poured a fresh coffee, the night pressing cool against the windows. Ellen's photo watched from the mantel, her eyes soft, knowing. I whispered to her, "It's done." I sat in the chair, the house quiet around me. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. They thought I was weak. They thought they could bury me. But in the end, I buried them. Thank you for watching this story. If it touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want more stories like this, check out the next video. See you there.